Just don't text and drive. Visit StopTextsStopWrecks.org. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. Be a part of the show by calling 915-544-KTSM, 915-544-5876, or comment online on our stream at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. It's 4 p.m. Mountain Time, and that means it's time to talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days. Facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter @Talk El Paso, or Twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. Whichever way works for you to be able to see what's going on. You comment on it if you like to, like Manda Moncada with the Yo Andrew is demonstrating so aptly already here in the program, but also, just any of the way that works for you to interact, to talk about the things we got going on. And there's a lot going on right in around the region today as we are talking. And so if you want to add your 2 cents that way, that's a good way to do it, along with, of course, Monica Cervantes and RJ Promotes dropping those likes and reacts over on the social media. And RJ Promotes putting it Taco Tuesday with a side of gremlins. Yeah, there are definitely some issues to go on, though maybe a little bit less, depending on how you take it. Among some of the stories, that controversial gas card program, or should I say, the program that has had now controversy around it in recent months, getting the axe as one of the first dish actions by the interim city manager for the city of El Paso, following those misuse allegations. So we'll talk a little bit further about that and those logistics. EPISD has a plan to now put refrigerated air in 21 more schools using some federal relief funds, of which, I guess better late than never, though, for the kids in those schools. I'm sure the lead up to this summer was not a fun one. Some other things, including going on with El Paso Electric, possible new rate increases based on new generation coming online, but also some previous reports about some of the new power plants seeing some major cost overruns and the potential impact on consumers in that way as well. Some other strange things going on, like a potential Fort Bliss soldier, I'm not going to call it defecting, but definitely fleeing to North Korea. We'll talk a little bit about that. But then also our interview today talking about what the heck is going on with particularly the rental market in our area. We've had some conversation going on that already. So getting into the specifics of, okay, so what are the details? What are the issues that come along with it? And what does it signify for frankly, the region as a whole? So a lot of conversation, a lot of issues going on, and we're going to do our best to delve into all of it. Phone calls a little bit later in the hour, as we usually do, because that's another good way to communicate with us if you can, again, do so safely. So let's just dive straight into it. We also have Ida Beza Gardner at the High and the Wave joining us over there on the social media as well. John Browson asking that question. Do you mean that city council members will not have to buy their gas like the taxpayers? Maybe. Let's just get some of the details from our news partners at KFOX 14 reporting on this today. That, again, El Paso interim city manager ended the use of gas cards after some on Met Council were accused of abusing the privilege that comes along with this. That interim city manager Carrie Weston made the decision during the city council meeting, with Mayor Oscar Leeser saying that he is in support of it, saying in a statement, quote, as a result of a recent audit which showed inconsistencies in the use of gas cards by some members of city council, interim city manager Carrie Weston has made the decision to terminate the use of gas cards by elected officials consistent with the manager's response to the audit. I fully support this decision. Appreciate Colonel Weston's prompt attention to this matter. Of course, there are a couple of things still coming up with that, including the ethics complaint that was filed. Again, previous interviews on the shows that we've had, both from, in this case, the one that complaint was filed against Cassandra Hernandez, sitting city rep, by one of her constituents. And, of course, we've interviewed both of them on here as well, and some other questions. So, the question that I have about saying that the gas card program has ended, I have reason to suspect that maybe the reimbursements aren't totally going to end. So, I mean, there was previously, what was it, a receipt or a pen and paper pad mileage tracking kind of system, stuff that arguably probably should have continued to exist, just saying. As much as, okay, if you have anyone out there who's ever worked a job where you get to track miles while where you get to, I don't know, get reimbursement for it, or just doing it for tax purposes, because if you like run a small business, your own business, self-employed, etc., you do get the ability to, for business purposes, get reimbursement on your tax. Well, not exactly reimbursement, but the credit on your taxes, right? Or at least you have in previous years. It's been a minute since I've done that, so if that sunsetted, womp womp. But in any case, yeah, keeping track of things, like confirmations, safeguards, arguably, yeah, there's a whole lot of maybe reasons why that would be a good idea. But in any case, the gas cards no longer going to function. Still, I haven't seen the full details if there is going to be anything more that happens with that, I will say. So again, the next one happening tomorrow, actually. That's the ethics committee hearing. So there is, again, Cassandra Hernandez had significant fuel usage as one of the sitting ones, but of course, as was mentioned, former city rep Claudio Rodriguez also highlighted in the audit as having the highest spending in 2022. And that the audit, according to our news partners at KFOX 14, the audit began after Calderon, the city's internal auditor, chief internal auditor, correct me there, after we received a tip about Rodriguez using her fuel card to fuel the vehicle used in her campaign. And of course, we've interviewed Rodriguez on this point as well. So there's, a lot going on with that situation. Eric von Holstein Rathwell saying, good afternoon. Hope you all found a cool place to hang out. Oh, yeah, we got that AC, particularly for the equipment we got in here blasting. And also saying that wonder if they'll just vote themselves another raise to make up for it. Again, that's actually not possible at the moment, or at the very least, if they were to try to do so, that would have to basically go to it would go to the voters. But also, I doubt they're going to want to upset the apple cart on the current formula, where each individual member of city council gets compensation based on the median income of El Paso, median household income. Let me correct myself there a little bit further, because that's obviously a little bit higher, considering not just talking about individual, but entire household. And I think the mayor gets like 1.5 times that amount. So, Mondo Mongondo saying city council members should definitely be reimbursed for their expenses. I mean, that's not an unreasonable point to make, though. I think a lot of people are thinking, okay, but let's make sure that it's reasonable reimbursement. If someone goes out and installs a pool in their yard and says, well, it was clearly an expense for the community. It exists in the community, doesn't it? No one's done that, at least not that I'm aware of. And I would assume that no reasonable person in their right mind would expect that to work. So let's just say reasonableness should definitely carry the day, as should usually be the case, as we also have Amber Vonda joining us with Rock On over on our social media. I already getting close to that first break of this hour right now. So before we get into that next break and get into that interview for today about what's going on with the properties, rental rates, and what it reveals about other things, EPISD plans air conditioning upgrades for 21 campuses in our area using federal relief funds. They do have the full list over. I'm not going to go through all of it, but a good smattering of between mostly middle schools, it looks like, or like PK through 8 schools, and getting those upgrading from swamp coolers, as is, I guess a good time to do it during the summer, when I guess the kids that are maybe stuck in summer school are roasting a little bit. Hopefully not. That's going to be happening, particularly units in high traffic areas during the 2023-2024 school year. So maybe not immediately either way, and coming specifically from the elementary and secondary school emergency relief federal funding. And said previously reported, of course, our news partners at KFOX 14, which we had conversations with them at the time, that 29 El Paso ISD schools do not have refrigerated air conditioning systems in their classroom, still having the evaporative cooling systems. Not any that I'm aware of, or I would be very surprised if there were any that don't have any air conditioning at all. Like, you can get away with that kind of stuff usually, not right now, obviously, as they're going through their own heat wave in Europe, but around here, yeah, if you don't have that, would that count as cruel and unusual punishment, or like Geneva Convention implications? Probably something along the lines of collective punishment or something like that. In any case, so working on that. I had swamp coolers back in the elementary school back in the day, and I still remember anyone else shares this kind of unfortunately, core memory for myself of when we switched over to it from the heating system in the winter, that sometimes that death fog of all the stuff that had kind of collected in that part of the vent or in that system over the months of not use would come out all at once. Yeah, that one's never going to leave me. Anyway, glad they're doing some upgrades, but of course there are questions about, other things swirling around, not necessarily with this project and programs, but when it comes to future bond projects and of course tax rates. And so that's not exactly, but related to the interview we're going to have with you today. Interesting study out about how competitive specifically the rental market is in El Paso, where El Paso ranks high up on some of these national lists. And okay, here's one of the headlines from it. For every vacant apartment in El Paso, 13 people are vying from it, according to this study by Rent Cafe. So we'll get into that, those details, interviews that we'll do with them a little bit earlier today. So that and a whole lot more coming out of this next break here on Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I am your host, Andrew J. Polk. Whole lot more we're talking about, whole lot more local or internationally happening, but locally based. We'll explain it all as we do with more Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Only one lane is open on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain down to Red. That means a lot of stop-and-go traffic. 15-minute delays from Vinton to Red on the 10 eastbound. On Gateway North at Diana, an accident's blocking two main lanes. A crash reported northbound Dyer at Hondo Pass, and a single vehicle rollover about 30 miles east of Fort Hancock on I-10 at mile marker 79. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Shopping for new blinds? At Blindster, we offer over 50 different blinds, shades, and shutters at low prices, custom made for your windows, and shipping is free. Shop at home and order 10 free samples of any product before you buy. Blindster.com.
Are you a business owner, CEO, or responsible for marketing? If you are, iHeartMedia can help you reach your goals and find new customers. We reach more consumers in your target area than anyone else, and we can give you access to those potential customers more cost-effectively across radio, digital, podcasting, and social. We'd love to show you how iHeartMedia can work for you. Get started today at iHeartAdvertising.com. That's iHeartAdvertising.com.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Attend the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, July 22nd and 23rd at the Forum Ballroom on 3800 Maddox in El Paso, Texas. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, custom knives, ammo, scopes, rifles, shotguns, and more. Buy, sell, and trade at the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, July 22nd and 23rd at the Forum Ballroom, 3800 Maddox, El Paso, Texas. Get $2 off admission by going to azgunradio.com. That's azgunradio.com.
That huge data breach from a few weeks ago has probably moved off your radar, but your information could still be on the dark web. LifeLock alerts you to suspicious activity, like someone using your info. If there's a problem, LifeLock's US-based identity restoration specialists will work to fix it. No one can prevent all identity theft or monitor all transactions, but LifeLock will help protect your identity long after this breach is forgotten. Save up to 25% your first year. Use promo code NEWS at lifelock.com.
City streets or small towns, everyone deserves a clean, green community. We are Keep America Beautiful, the nonprofit working to end littering, improve recycling, and beautify communities. Let's do beautiful things. Visit KAB.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days: Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, either under Talk El Paso or an Andrew J. Polk. And a lot of conversation going on when it comes to some of the situations we're talking about here locally, including the gas card program not getting the axe from the now interim, previous acting city manager, Carrie Weston, and a lot of conversation on that, including some is justified. Eric von Holstein Rathwell saying they should put any fuel reimbursement proposals up for a vote from us taxpayers. We wouldn't be necessarily opposed to that. Would be not quite sure the mechanism it would take to get that on there, as it's a budget line item, essentially, that is then voted on in the budget. So I don't know, it might take a referendum is what I'm kind of saying that there. And other conversations, including on the school districts and the issues with them. John Browsland saying, are the various school districts eliminating or consolidating schools since people are having fewer kids nowadays? This should help make up for fewer teachers going to the profession as well. I mean, there are some factors you're talking about there going on, and there has been, very least I can most confidently say, with EPISD, it was one of the biggest kerfuffles with the bond projects and some of the realignments was about which schools are going to close or be done with, Roberts. That's not too far off of some of those areas where you talked about in the traffic right now, actually, if I'm not mistaken, the location of that when I drive by it frequently enough. Not too far off of the I-10 and was that Thorn? Yeah, not too far from that area. So that one is shut down as far as I'm aware. Not quite sure what the future of that property is, though other ones such as I guess the former Moorhead, still got the Moorhead sign here, so I'm not quite sure I don't remember what they're calling that one. That one is getting consolidated to my understanding, but sure, there may be less birth rates, but there are still, there's a larger population that's still a lot of kids, basically. I know the baby boomers were talked about as one of the biggest generations, but there was actually millennials that were one of the biggest, if not outpacing actually boomers by a few percentage points. And I do believe it's on track for the rest of it. So a lot of that leads to, of course, conversations about tax rates and the issues that go into that, right? Supporting these bond projects, etc. And of course, the situation that we're dealing with here in town about growth or not, a lot of them, we've been talking about this in even recent days on our airwaves about what the heck is going on, because we may have seen, at the very least, population growth slowing in our area. I don't believe it's reversed, at least not in any long-term way. There might have been some analysis that has come out about there being people moving away from the area. But the question that comes down there is, okay, is that happening because there isn't enough? And so that's a question I was able to get into when a recent study coming out from Rent Cafe and getting into where El Paso ranks pretty high when it comes to, at least for markets our size, the competitiveness and the lack of supply, particularly of rentals, but also what that reveals and some of the, frankly, startling numbers that we talk about in this, about what the future of these markets are. So I was able to speak with them a little bit earlier today on this. So here is that interview. Enjoy. Joining me now, we have Doug Ressler, senior analyst and a spokesperson at Yardi Matrix, and also with Rent Cafe. Thank you very much for joining us here today.
Thanks as always, Andrew. Appreciate it.
Sure thing, because the discussion on the market, particularly on the real estate aspect, has been certainly a conversation going on in our local area and, of course, nationally. But y'all have some very interesting stats on maybe not necessarily how hot the real estate market is, those kind of parts that have been affecting things like tax rates and those conversations, but about how much demand and, well, what has been fulfilled in our area when it comes to housing, and particularly on apartments, including ranking El Paso the number 11th small market, the hottest 11th small market in the country for 2023.
That's right. And, we looked at over 137 rental markets in the United States. Our sister division, Rent Cafe, looked at all the data. They used Yardi Matrix data, and they broke it into large-scale multifamily properties or cities, medium-sized and small. And El Paso is a small city based off of things like Manhattan, New York, San Francisco, places like that.
Sure.
So we really did it by size and the number of properties to be able to say if it's a large or small city market.
Okay, so that makes sense because, a lot of people around this area say it's the biggest thing around. But, of course, when you put that in comparison to, the major megalopolises of the coast, it makes sense. But even then, some of the numbers we're looking at here in that 11th ranking of the small markets is, well, tipping the scale whenever it comes to some of those national averages. Like, among other things, El Paso is for every apartment that is available, there are 13 people that are competing for it. Is one of the stats that really stood out to me.
Yeah, that's true. We've had as low in some markets, again, irregardless of size, they can range as low as 9 to 22. So again, it's reverse mirror, if you will, for the number of renters that are applying for rent. So obviously, lower numbers means less demand. Higher number of renters, applying means greater demand.
Sure thing. And so, I mean, put that comparison with some of the ones also on that small rental markets, like the number one on the list is a Harrisburg, PA, with 14 prospective renters, but that still puts it both above the national average of how many people the number of people competing for each available one. And there's not a lot of availability with, according to y'all's data, 95.8% of all apartments are currently occupied. And at least half of those, more than half actually, will expect to be pretty much really readily renewing.
Yeah, what we see is property managers, obviously, in terms of the overall affordability of housing across the nation, and it's true for El Paso and really all the other markets in the country, is the lack of affordable housing. You can use census or you can use National Multi Housing Council. The numbers vary, but anywhere between 3.8 and 6 million units are needed over the course of the next 10 years. So what people are searching for is the affordable housing. The new supply stock to purchase housing is continuing to decelerate based off of the last census data that has come out, and also the interest rates to be able to afford housing, to buy housing, has gone up. So what that means is renters are going to continue to occupy rental housing longer than was previously expected prior to 2018. What we really see, too, from a property management standpoint is rates continue to decelerate because of the new supply coming on board. We're projecting over 485,000 units this year coming on board in the nation. And so with the new supply, what we're seeing is it's basic economics 101, deceleration of rental rates. Renters are going to have more availability to choose from. Now, conversely, that being said, property managers are going to want to retain renters because it costs money for a renter to move out and to replace them. So what you're going to see too, and we're anticipating concessions in Q3 and Q4 with the deceleration of rent and the new supply coming on board, you're going to see concessions being offered by property managers to retain the occupancy. We don't believe that the occupancy will fall, for the most part, below 95%.
Again, if you're just joining us, guest right now is Doug Ressler, senior analyst and spokesperson with Yardi Matrix, also talking about, of course, the rentcafe.com, a recent analysis of some of the hottest rental markets in the country. Again, El Paso in the smaller sector of it, on the small rental market, but still ranking number 11th within that ranking. So again, if you want to see that study for yourself, some of these things, the full article title is Miami is the nation's hottest renting spot as Florida shines again this rental season. But of course, you go about halfway down that article and you'll see El Paso ranking there again, number 11 on the chart of the hottest small rental markets at the start of rental season 2023. So again, that's over on rentcafe.com. So the share of new apartments is one of the things that you're also marking on that one, saying that the El Paso, Texas market will be getting about 0.4% share of new apartments. So what does that end up meaning behind the numbers?
What that means is that basically the existing stock, we typically look at anywhere above 4 percentage points of existing stock to be a saturation point for a market. El Paso is way below that. Plus, the employment number for El Paso continues to go up. We track BLS, and the employment in El Paso has grown 2.4% in case of the last 12 months. And hourly wages have risen 4.8%. Some of that is energy. Some of that is other types of industries, but we believe that the employment situation in the El Paso, Lubbock, West Texas area is going to continue to grow. And with that, you're going to see new supply coming on board, but at the same time, you're going to see demand continuing to go up because the existing inventory in those areas has not been great. So now what you're seeing is these secondary markets starting to be flush with employment, flush with demand, which requires new supply coming on board. So they're far away from lack of saturation because of the fact that they started out with so little inventory available in multifamily to begin with.
Yeah, again, that just shy of 96% of occupied apartments. So really that one of those eye-catching numbers of 13 prospective renters for basically every available one. What does that end up meaning in reality? Or at least for someone who is considering like, all right, I want to look for a new rental place or changing their situation. Does this mean that you got to be constantly on it, or what does that look like in practice?
Well, you got to use the tools available and do the research, which is one of the things that Rent Cafe offers. Their website allows you to do, they do the heavy lifting for you. So based off of the type of, rent you want to pay, based off the area, based off the amenities, et cetera, it's best to do your research. And that's why the Rent Cafe website does that for you to be able to give you a better choice and to make more of a thorough analysis of those areas you're looking for, whether you're looking in the El Paso or Lubbock area, or whether you're moving from El Paso and you're moving to Miami. So we cover over 170 markets nationwide with the data, and Rent Cafe does an excellent job in terms of their webpage, helping you to do research so that you can make the best decision.
Fair enough there. And one of the other metrics that you all use is a competitive score, and where El Paso ranks 94 on that scale, as opposed to, again, on the top of the small rental market heat index that y'all got here, the number one being Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, with a 123. So is that like an aggregate score, or how does that one end up working?
Yeah, basically it's a weighted average. And 30% of the score is built from apartment occupancy, 15% for vacant days on a market, 15% for prospective renters, and 30% for renewal rate, with another 10% of share of new apartments coming on board. Now, one thing about Harrisburg is a small market, but again, it's the state capital. So it would be like taking Austin and putting it into a small market. So they have a lot of jobs and a lot of permanency of jobs. So that's why they score so high. With the El Paso area, it's a much more diverse employment type of economy, which doesn't give you the state capital type of step up that Harrisburg has.
Yeah, sure. Definitely a lot of different employment here. Like you mentioned, energy is certainly always a draw from our particular area in West Texas in general, as well as, of course, military government in general. Certainly a large focus and probably a growing sector in its own right within our region. So a average vacancy just over a month at about 41 days, with that in the release renewal rate, people sticking around with it. So this kind of begs a few questions about then what is that, not even just behind the way you all do these measurements, but some of the extrapolations that can be drawn from this. With that, the factors of new apartment units coming online, is there essentially an impetus to maybe not be building, say, single family homes to be sold, but rather focusing on maybe either multifamily or rental apartment properties as the focus possibly going forward?
Well, it seems like the market is reacting to the rental market development strictly because I think there's a lot of wait and see as to what the Fed is going to do, especially with mortgage rates. Mortgage rates are topping out at somewhere between 6 and 7% right now. The supply is down. And so with the supply being down, you're not going to see a lot of investment going into, and the demand being low because of the interest rates. You're not going to see a lot of money flowing into to buy home. What you're going to see is it's going to go into multifamily in terms of rental.
One piece of, anecdotal argument that's been happening in our region is that we have seen not necessarily depopulation, like a end of population growth in our area, but we certainly have seen a lot of slowing in it. We're falling well behind the averages in overall population growth in the El Paso county area, behind rates of other parts of Texas. We were having essentially a larger swaths being taken out by other based areas of congressional representation, etc. And one of the contentions is that, well, no one wants to live here anymore. Everyone's moving away. But one of the other contentions has been that there isn't enough, again, occupancy. There isn't enough space for people to move into in order to see the population growth continue in this region. So given some of these factors, some of these numbers, including like the share of new apartments, those trends that you're talking about that you all are seeing when it comes to the single family, mortgage-based type homes, does it kind of support maybe that second conclusion that there just isn't enough to continue supporting the population growth, or does it lie somewhere in between?
I think it's somewhere in between, because what we also see is another particular niche market growing within the rental market, and that's the single family or build to rent. It looks like a house. It starts out about the same square footage as a starter home, 1,400 square feet. Looks like a house, has a yard, pet friendly, things like that. But its price point in terms of rental is well below what you have to pay for a house and maintenance. And there's a lot of people that are moving to that type of an asset within multifamily rentals. It's called build to rent, BTR. And that usually is occurring on the exurbs, what we call outside the urban cores, the central business districts. It's occurring more in a suburban type of area where permitting and zoning are much more, indicative of the type of price point. It's also being managed. There's a move on by large real estate investment trust groups who manage multifamily to begin buying single family or build to rent or build it themselves to be able to fit the demand, because that's where a lot of the demand is occurring, especially in Z-type renters and boomers. So boomers who are giving up the equity in their home saying, I don't want a home to maintain anymore, but I want something that looks like a home. Single family rentals is where they're going. Also Z-type people, just fresh out, just getting out of school, don't have a lot of wealth or affluency. They want the same, so they're getting a lot of that with the single family rental, and that market is growing.
Interesting. It kind of almost sounds similar to there had been previous either prognostication or responses to, say, the short-term rental, your Airbnb style thing. There's actually one in my neighborhood. And there had been, the internet abounds, particularly with influencers claiming this is how to make a lot of money, get rich quick, buy, flip, those type of things. But there had been, some backlash to it, and B, it seemed like some of that market, the bottom had been falling out on it. Do you see if that trend, that potential continues, that may or may not have any impact on this whole rental market situation?
Well, I think the Airbnb is under some stress right now. I think there's a lot of litigation and legislation in terms of that. I do think that based off whether you believe Moody's projections or Ivy Zelman from Walker Dunlap, they're projecting that single family rentals or build to rent could grow to be 40% of the market between now and the next 10 years.
Wow, that would certainly be very interesting change. So we'd still be seeing growth in a way, but not of the same maybe traditional way of people building, buying, and building equity in houses.
Absolutely right.
Very interesting. So that'll be an interesting trend to see how that's impacting on our area. Again, if you've just been joining us, guest right now has been Doug Ressler, senior analyst and spokesperson at Yardi Matrix. Again, talking about the Rent Cafe article, analyzing and putting El Paso as the 11th hottest small rental market for the start of the 2023 rental season. Again, that full article and all the details in it over at rentcafe.com. So, Doug, thank you very much for taking the time to speak with us about that, about the trends y'all are seeing, and, well, what it kind of signifies for our local area here today.
You bet. Thank you, Andrew. Always a pleasure.
So we're going to go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we'll talk more about the things going on or affecting us or originating from here, including, as was talked about, that there was an interesting international incident involving a Fort Bliss, or maybe not former Fort Bliss soldier, not quite sure how that works. Talk about that and a whole lot more, including what might be going on with your electric rates, a potential, it's not exactly a rate case, but could be seeing it go up and might lead to one, but whole lot more and all that coming in after this next break here on Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Phone lines here in just a bit, but in the meantime, a whole lot more discussion on the things here in the Borderland. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso on News Radio 690 KTSM. Don't go anywhere.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 news update. We're learning more from police about what led to a mass shooting outside of a bar in East El Paso last week. Today, we obtained the arrest report for the two suspected shooters who are both Fort Bliss soldiers. The shooting happened early Thursday morning in the parking lot of a bar called Ditsy Duck on Airway. A man and woman were killed. 4 others were injured in that shooting. Investigators say they have obtained surveillance video. According to the report, an assault occurred in the parking lot, and after the assault, the surveillance video shows that 20-year-old Andrew James Williams and 22-year-old Aaron John both pulled out handguns and started firing into a crowd in the parking lot. They drove away, but according to the report, they were stopped by military police as they tried to return to Fort Bliss. Both are being held on charges of capital murder. The El Paso interim city manager has ended the use of gas cards after some members of city council were accused of abusing the cards. Interim City Manager Kerry Weston made the decision on Tuesday during a council meeting. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser says he fully supports the decision. This has been your KFOX 14 news update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Only one lane of traffic getting by on the I-10 eastbound from Trans Mountain down to Red. That means delays, 20-minute delays on the I-10 eastbound from Vinton to Red. An accident's blocking 2 main lanes on Gateway North at Diana. A vehicle fire has closed all lanes on the I-10 westbound CD lanes near Sunland Park. And heavy traffic, Montana Avenue, McRae out to Desert Meadows. 10-minute delays. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warn for heat continues. Excessive heat warning through Thursday night. Mostly sunny skies for our Wednesday. High around 110 degrees for tomorrow. We'll see partly cloudy skies for your Thursday. High around 109. Partly cloudy, breezy for your Friday. 10% chance of a storm, 106. And then not as hot on Saturday. Partly cloudy, breezy, 20% chance of storms. High 101. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
The Dell Technologies Black Friday and July event starts now with savings on select PCs powered by the latest Intel Core processors. Plus, get deals on select accessories and free shipping on everything. Save now by calling 877-ASK-DELL.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic form of Viagra that works just the same, but is 95% cheaper? And you can get it online? Just go to 4hims.com/radio. Through Hims, you'll get a free medical consultation, discreet shipping if prescribed, a 100% online process, and trusted generic alternatives to the name brands at up to 95% off. That's right. Get generic for Viagra, the same active ingredient as brand name Viagra, but for 95% less. It's the same medication, still prescribed by a licensed medical provider, but with zero copay, no expensive appointments, and no awkward face-to-face conversations. To start your free online visit, you need to go to this exclusive address, 4hims.com/radio. That's 4hims.com/radio for your free online visit. FORHIMS.com/RADIO.
For the local issues and discussion you won't get anywhere else, turn to Talk El Paso. Weekdays at 4 right here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Brought to you in part by the El Paso Community Foundation. Sound off on what matters to you, Monday through Friday, 4 to 6 p.m. And let's talk El Paso.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer over 50 different custom window treatments, including faux wood blinds and shutters, all at prices less than retail. Plus, we'll send you free samples before you buy. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so. Be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, more or less the main one. You can also find us under similar other Facebook pages, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch.tv, just like Matt Olson chiming in with the yo. I think I did that one justice, and a lot of other conversation. Willie Jenkins also chiming in there, and other people talking about some of the different issues going on with what our previous interview was. Again, thanks to Rent Cafe for talking to us about their study about putting El Paso on the 11th hottest small rental markets, meaning that it's not like New York, LA, etc., but still has its own. 13 people per apartment. I thought when the last time I looked for one that there was like rented by the end of the day, we didn't even get a chance to call back. That was bad. That sounds practically cutthroat, though. Portland is the one, it's at 5th on that same list. It's got 25 per. So yeah, that's fun. Good luck to any of those dealing with that out there. And the whole rent to own market, I guess it makes sense, but like usually you'd think they'd be building like apartment buildings and not what would otherwise be single family homes, just explicitly to rent. So the fact that it might be 40%, oh, there's a whole lot messed up to be talked about there, and a lot of a response to that as well. Like Ed Clore saying, even though population is decreasing in El Paso, I mean, it's been flat, and the census estimates do put it as we talked about from El Paso Matters and previous month back in May, actually, that El Paso city population drops by more than 1,000 in 2022. So we got some issues. But again, the question of if this is because there just isn't the space for people to move into, and therefore they're moving out, another question to be asked. RJ saying largest job growth was in government jobs. When the tax money runs out, methinks there will be job cuts. Yeah, potentially. And also mentioning, of course, with Fort Bliss growing, you could see this coming. And that's pretty much the anecdotal evidence, isn't it? Right? That half of those 13, okay, maybe not half, but a good chunk of them are either originating from or related to Fort Bliss. And otherwise, James Radcliffe sounding very skeptical if downright down on the whole situation, saying ripping off the population probably will get exposed. Whereas all the money going for repairing roads is it invested in pet projects that with what they're supposed to use that money for. I mean, they're still in the evaluation phase. If you're talking about, at least that's what they're saying. Anyway, when we're talking about the most recent bond projects from the city of El Paso. So there's and just not being happy about some of those things. And RJ saying, careful, you move into the sticks, your next city may be more corrupt. And there's some conversation about what does that mean. I always took it as moving out into the middle of nowhere. The way it was explained to me is more of RJ saying that it's might be more of an East Texas thing. The way I always took it is that you're moving out into the woods, right? Middle of nowhere, and there's usually trees and most other places, eastern parts of the country, let's be fair and put it that way. So you're surrounded by trees which have sticks on them, so you're moving to the sticks. I don't know. If that's the way that you have a different explanation, that's the way I at least think about it, or is explained to me. So there's a lot of other conversation about Matt did appreciate the there as well. So we'll keep going with that. And of course, some people desperate to get out of situations, including, okay, this is not locally happening, but it's so weird. And with the local connection, I can't not mention this. Article title from our news partners at KFOX 14, Fort Bliss soldier facing military disciplinary actions flees to North Korea while touring a border village. Yeah, that headline took a lot of twists and turns throughout it, didn't it? And so specifically the reporting is that Private Second Class Travis King, who had been released from a South Korean prison where he'd been held on assault charges and was facing additional military disciplinary actions in the United States, so was on his way to being brought back to the U.S. And he was being escorted to the airport, but somehow managed to slip away from that, get into a tour of the Korean border village of, I am not going to say this one right, someone who's been there, tell me if I got anywhere near it, Panmunjom, where he ran across the border, just going straight across it. So, yeah, that's a weird one, right? I mean, it's trying to escape possible disciplinary. Secretary of the Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said, quote, we're closely monitoring and investigating the situation and notifying the soldiers next of kin. This will develop in the next several days and hours, and we'll keep you posted. So the fact that there's a Fort Bliss connection to this just makes this even a little bit more surreal. And so, yeah, the fact that that border village, one of the ones that I do believe, if I'm not mistaken, is that iconic where you see the facing border guards across the non-fenced area, the one, the blue huts that are very famous, is, well, the fact that he just ran across that. Usually hear about this coming the other way around, and in fact has happened in previous years, but the fact that any of this happened is bizarre to say the least, and the fact that there's an El Paso connection feels beyond even weirder. I'll just put it that way. One other quick note, I do want to mention here a couple of stories that connected in its own right. El Paso Electric possibly going to be raising rates from our news partners at KFOX 14, that El Paso Electric customers likely to face rate increase due to new generator addition. specifically about there being a $192 million project expected to come online in September and could raise rates from $1 to $3 per month to cover those construction costs. So that not for those in New Mexico, though, by the way, because the generator won't serve that area, does lead to questions about, okay, is this going to be another rate case in which, okay, the general way that seems to work, circumstances are going to vary, but that they come down with a request for this X amount that goes before all the regulatory boards, City of El Paso. All of them end up saying, like, no, we're not going to do that. Or City of El Paso ended up saying, no, we don't want to increase rates, because what elected official in their right mind seeking re-election anyway is going to say, yes, go ahead and increase the cost for my constituents. I'm sure they'll be happy about that. That's not how that works. And then it ends up going to the court proceedings. The justifications are given, and it comes out to about half that. So I'm going to call it between 50 cents and $1.50 an increase there. Though there have been other questions, including reporting from El Paso Matters in recent weeks. Their article titled Consumer Advocate Challenges El Paso Electric as utility's newest power plant comes in $37 million over budget. Specifically, referring to that of, I do believe, the Newman 6 unit. That was, well, at least that's the photo they've attached with. I'm not sure if that's the actual part of it, but I do believe that is it. The Newman 6 power station in far northeast El Paso. So the cost overruns that it was, that would be the same unit, it does look like. So finally getting to operation, but still having issues. Let's go ahead and take that next break right now. Coming out of this break, we will go ahead and open up those phone lines as we usually do at this point during the program. So if you want to chime in, add your 2 cents by doing so. That way we got more comments that we'll get to here as well. There's a lot more coming up. So if you want to get on the line, that number to do so, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy traffic on the I-10 eastbound in the Upper Valley. It's down to one lane from Trans Mountain to Red, and you can see it. 28-minute delays, I-10 eastbound from Vinton to Red. A crash is blocking 2 main lanes on Gateway North at Diana. A single vehicle rollover on the I-10 30 miles east of Fort Hancock at mile marker 79 is off to the right shoulder. Harry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Dell Technologies.
The Dell Technologies Black Friday and July event starts now with savings on select PCs powered by the latest Intel Core processors. Plus, get deals on select accessories and free shipping on everything. Save now by calling 877-ASK-DELL.
It's the Marketers Report. Today, Capital One's Chief Brand Officer, Mark Mentry, weighs in on building loyalty with customers.
Capital One has really worked to create amazing access moments for our customers. We will do sound check parties that only Capital One cardholders can get access to, and we can't pull that off without iHeart.
As the #1 audio company, iHeartMedia gives marketers access to the audiences, insights, and data you need to grow. If you're a marketer, go to iHeartResults.com.
Attend the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, July 22nd and 23rd at the Forum Ballroom on 3800 Maddox in El Paso, Texas. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, custom knives, ammo, scopes, rifles, shotguns, and more. Buy, sell, and trade at the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, July 22nd and 23rd at the Forum Ballroom, 3800 Maddox, El Paso, Texas. Get $2 off admission by going to azgunradio.com. That's azgunradio.com.
Attention, your money is now controlled by the U.S. government.
Picture a world where your every purchase is monitored, tracked, and controlled by those in power to suppress the freedoms of those they see fit. Hi, my name is Jason Hansen. I'm a former CIA officer and New York Times bestselling author. And right now, I've become very focused on the impending rollout of the central bank digital currency. This is not a work of fiction. It's a terrifying reality looming on the horizon. But there is a bit of good news. I've partnered with Advantage Gold to offer you a solution. They are specialists in converting your traditional assets, like those inside an IRA or 401k, into tangible assets such as physical gold and silver. Don't allow your money to be controlled. Claim your free gold protection kit from Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor.
Call 800-900-8000.
Like to shop local? Go to ComparionInsurance.com. Their agents are local insurance experts finding you the right insurance at the right price from national carriers. Comparion Insurance Agency. Local agents. Expert advice.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live, streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And let's say the conversations are always interesting, if different sometimes, such as apparently off of the RJ giving me the advice to take 2 shots of Everclear and try again. Then the rest of the show would be me from the floor saying, hey, guy. No, we're not going to do that. But in any case, a lot of other conversations going on, including on that whole very strange swarpless soldier situation. John Brausleton saying, not a story I was fully aware of, the last soldier who defected lived there most of his life with a Japanese wife. He taught the North Koreans American English. So, okay. I mean, that hasn't never happened, but particularly not in this kind of circumstance. Like, defection usually has like a political component to it, it feels like, doesn't it? And this one, well, at the very least in the initial part, does not seem to. But a lot more conversation, including James Radcliffe asking, why does the electric company even have a budget? Well, you got to justify something for how much you made in profit, right? Okay, that's a little bit tongue-in-cheek, but I mean, that's also how they used to justify any of the rate increases, saying, well, here's what we spent, here's what we plan to recoup. So if you want to keep I mean, there are standards that have to be done. So I think your comment was maybe a little bit facetious, but I mean, that is the answer to it anyway. So we do have to take that next break here real quick. We got real quite to the top of the hour. So we got callers on the line. If you're there, stay there. If you want to get on the line, we did have one question that came in. Just wanted to pass it along off air. We'll talk about that and more of what we're discussing here right after this next break and the top of the hour news. But again, that number, if you're wanting to call in, 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heavy traffic on the I-10 eastbound in the Upper Valley. It's down to 1 lane from Trans Mountain to Red, and you can see it 28-minute delays. I-10 eastbound from Vinton to Red. A crash is blocking 2 main lanes on Gateway North at Diana. A single vehicle rollover on the I-10 30 miles east of Fort Hancock at mile marker 79 is off to the right shoulder. Harry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso and surrounding areas. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat. Thank you for making us #1 in new car sales again. We make buying a new or certified pre-owned vehicle fast, fun, and easy.
Our goal this month is to break our all-time sales record, so Sunland Park Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram Fiat will do whatever it takes to make a deal. Get 10% off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Low-Star trucks, $4,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator trucks and super low 1.9% APR for 72 months, $2,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Wrangler, plus 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo, $3,500 off MSRP and 2.9% for 72 months. Worry about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our aggressive lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect or if you owe more than the trade is worth. Get huge savings and more for your trade during the Make This a Summer sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, at I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount for CTNL. 1.9% APR is $14.71 and 2.9% is $15.15 per thousand finance on select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Traffic's bad enough without Mother Nature adding to your headache. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed with El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay informed at ktsmradio.com. News on the hour and the hat. Traffic and weather all day. News Radio 690 is KTSM AM El Paso, an iHeart radio station.
NBC News Radio, I'm Brian Shook. A heat wave and wildfire smoke are both sweeping across the U.S. More from Lisa Taylor.
The heat dome is currently expanding across the southern U.S., pushing temperatures into the triple digits and straining some power grids. Officials in California are urging residents to conserve air conditioning usage, and Las Vegas reports a sharp rise in AC service calls. Meanwhile, air quality alerts are in effect for 14 states as Canadian wildfire smoke blankets the East and Midwest.
Michigan's Attorney General says she filed charges against 16 individuals who signed paperwork falsely claiming former President Trump won the 2020 election. Attorney General Dana Nessel said the group allegedly met in the basement of the state's Republican Party headquarters to sign the papers. This news comes the same day as Trump said he's been informed he's the target of an investigation into the January 6th riot and efforts to overturn the 2020 presidential election. Japan says North Korea launched a suspected ballistic missile test. Japan's Prime Minister's office tweeted the news in the early hours of Wednesday local time. This comes following a U.S. Navy ballistic missile submarine that made a port call in South Korea today. The nuclear-capable vessel's presence was announced by South Korea's defense ministry the same day. The White House is condemning reports that Texas guardsmen were told to push illegal immigrants back towards Mexico and into the Rio Grande.
We saw those reports. If they are true, it is abhorrent.
Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre said if the reports are true, the treatment of illegal immigrants violates bedrock values. They came from a Texas state trooper who was working as a medic along the border. A search warrant has been served in connection to the murder of rapper Tupac Shakur. ABC News reports police searched a home in the Las Vegas area. You're listening to the latest from NBC News Radio. Surprising new details are emerging in a deadly helicopter crash that killed a pilot and his passenger battling a wildfire. The NTSB says an iPad that was in the cockpit likely fell in between the control pedals and contributed to the accident last year. Jared Bird of Anchorage and Thomas Hayes of Idaho were fighting a wildfire near North Fork, Idaho, when their aircraft crashed into the Salmon River. The federal government could take control of the Rikers Island jail complex in New York City. Scott Pringle reports.
Manhattan U.S. Attorney Damian Williams says he's now going to ask a judge to have Rikers put in the Fed's hands to address ongoing dangers to detainees and officers there. He says we can no longer wait for substantial progress to be made. Last week, a federal monitor report found the Department of Correction did not make enough progress in implementing reforms to fix issues at Rikers. Well, the Adams administration disagrees, saying progress has been made in the last few months.
The burger chain In and Out will be barring employees from wearing masks in 5 states. Daniel Martindale explains.
Starting August 14th, employees in Nevada, Arizona, Colorado, Utah, and Texas will not be allowed to wear a medical mask at work unless they have a doctor's note. The rule will not apply to workers in California, where In and Out is based, and in Oregon. The company says its new mask guidelines emphasize the importance of customer service and the ability to show employees smiles. Employees who are cleared to wear face coverings in the affected states will be required to wear an N95 mask provided by the company.
More tourists are being caught defacing Rome's Colosseum. A 17-year-old girl from Switzerland was seen reportedly carving her own initials into a wall of the ancient monument by a tour guide, according to Rome's local military police force. The next day, another 17-year-old from Germany was caught apparently doing something similar. Each could be fined as much as 15,000 euros or nearly $17,000 and could risk 5 years in jail. Brian Shook, NBC News Radio.
Now your chance to win $1,000. Just enter this nationwide keyword on our website. Grand. That's grand. Enter it now.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. At Blindster, we offer over 50 different custom window treatments, including faux wood blinds and shutters, all at prices less than retail. Plus, we'll send you free samples before you buy. Don't hire an expensive pro. Do it yourself and save big at Blindster.com.
The El Paso Community Foundation supports the causes you feel passionate about here in the Borderland, whether it's education, social services, arts and culture, the environment, health, or economic development. The El Paso Community Foundation has been promoting philanthropy and progress in our hometown region for more than 45 years. Make your mark with us. Start a fund today for good, for El Paso, forever. Learn more at epcf.org. That's epcf.org.
only iHeartRadio gives you access to all of your favorite radio stations.
The Rod Ryan Show. It's the Woody Show. It's Elliot in the morning.
All of the once-in-a-lifetime events.
iHeartRadio Music Festival, yeah!
All of the best free curated playlists.
The best bands.
All of the great podcasts for every interest.
The stuff they don't want you to know.
All of the mind-blowing contests.
$20,000.
Awesome. All of your favorite superstars.
This is Dave Grohl from the Foo Fighters.
Best of all, it doesn't cost a thing. Download the absolutely free iHeartRadio app now.
Not on my watch, our military service members say, as they volunteer to serve. As they move out, stand firm, and take fire. So not on our watch, we say, to the severely ill or injured veterans who can't get the care they deserve to live full and independent lives, even when there's no government funding or a nursing home seems like the only option. We won't leave one warrior behind. Not on our watch. Join us at findwwp.org.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages. We're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. A lot of conversations, a lot of different things being talked about, and a lot of different ways to, of course, communicate them, among other things, including over on our various social pages, like I said, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and twitch.tv, or on our, of course, phone lines, with a line available right now, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. And if you want to get your 2 cents there, again, lines available now, so go ahead and dive into there if you so decide to. And of course, a lot of issues going on here in the Borderland. One questions that came up as one of the off-air ones of basically what the heck is going on. Not exactly what was being talked about on the city side of things, but some of the roadways, particularly around the Horizon City area, that there were supposed to be projects going on connecting. So that basically Horizon Boulevard itself wasn't the main connection down to I-10 and therefore the rest of the region, but things like Darrington. So haven't seen any specific updates on those ever since there was the bankruptcy on some of those projects. So I think, was it Peticano, if I'm not mistaken? I might be mistaken on that one. Was able to find that story immediately, but that basically, yeah, things are a little bit borked up for the time being, and probably not going to be getting much better because, I mean, there's already been issues with contractors and the ability to still continue doing that work. So we're asking for questions specifically out of any of the particularly representatives or the county commissioners, more accurately, for that area. So we'll have to look into that, see what we can find about the heck is going on out there. And I will say that on the city side of things, one story we didn't get to, but El Paso Inc. has this week: contractor challenges City of El Paso over bid process that specifically ZTEX Construction, ZTEX, is something that is coming up here. They're filing a lawsuit against the City of El Paso after not being awarded 2 contracts totaling more than $30 million for street resurfacing, alleging that errors were made in the bid review process. So that's some of the conversation going on. But in the meantime, of course, let's get to those phone lines, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We do have Robert on the far east side of El Paso calling in with us right now. Robert, thanks for joining us.
Yes, good afternoon, Mr. Polk. I listen to your radio. I want to get to the point, and because I want to let other callers,
sure,
come in and voice their opinion. But I kind of disagree with that gentleman that called earlier, because whenever you're talking about El Paso, these people, do they even live here? And they're doing these studies and all this and that. I've been here in this city for 55 years. And like, say, for example, back in 89, you could get a studio, brand new apartment for $350 with all utilities paid. Now you fast forward 34 years to present time, and for a studio, you're looking at $650, $700, maybe $850. The rents have gone up.
Oh yeah.
And the back in '89, the pay was $5.15, and Burley right now, 34 years later, it's $7.25.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever mentions that here in El Paso, the wages are stagnant and they're low. The thing about it is that Joe Biden and the Democrats promised vote for us, and we're going to raise the federal minimum wage to $15, which would do this city justice, because everything's gone up. Gas, food, rent, but the wages have stayed stagnant. And another thing I want to say too is that somebody needs to do a study to see all these apartments in the private sector, to see how many are like 30 to 35 years old. And these owners of these apartments in the private sector, they haven't remodeled them. They haven't built new ones. Most of the apartments in El Paso, the rents have gone up 3-4 times, but the apartments are old. There are not that many new apartments. So that's what the renters here in the city have to face. I'm going to pay maybe $1,200 to $1,500 for a 2-bedroom on a rundown apartment in the private sector. That's what's wrong with this city. Our wages are low, the rents are high, and the apartments are old.
I mean,
with that being said, when people talk about, the cost of living, I've been here all my life and I've seen how everything's gone up. And one thing, like I tell you, how can you pay a $1,200 rent on a private apartment only owning $7.25 for 40 hours?
Yep. I mean, El Paso is one of those many cities in which that math doesn't math anymore. It doesn't work out that way. And I mean, the new lease, the average rent, I do believe, is that it's at just over $1,000. We were on the cusp of that in some of the previous conversations with, and I will say that the people we're talking about here with our guests from today, Yardy Matrix and Rent Cafe, they are not locally based, but they take similar types of data, and they're pretty much in the, like it was mentioned during the course of the interview, in the process. They're in the business of helping people find apartments. So they do a lot of the data analysis on this here. But even with some of the local conversations we had with, say, the Border Region Economic Modeling Project, the BRMP over at UTEP, that we were getting pretty well close to that $1,000 mark, and now it appears that we have hit it, putting El Paso at 18th overall in year-over-year rent growth, again, according to some of that data. So it's getting more difficult out there. And again, the whole build to rent phenomenon is one that's okay. I don't know how prevalent that is in our area just yet, but it does make me wonder how much of that is going to continue to impact this situation going forward.
And one thing that people have to realize is that most of these private apartments owned in this city are from companies outside the city. So other than paying the property taxes on the apartments they own, hiring a maintenance guy and maybe a manager, most of the money that people are working hard to pay these high rents, it's leaving El Paso. What El Paso needs is higher wages, new apartments, and lower rents. And that's not what we have right now. Right now we have broken down, beat up apartments, high rents, and low wages. Until this city's realize, that's one thing where, people that voted Democrat, Joe Biden said, don't vote for Trump, vote for me and the Democrats, and we're going to raise the minimum wage to $15, which is much needed right now. I know other states are raising them and some are not, but if the federal government raises the wages, that means all the states have to do it. And that's one promise that he promised his voters that voted for him, and he has yet to complete that promise, to honor that promise. So what I'm saying is, like, I get these experts that come on the show and they throw you all these statistics, but the reality is that there's a lot of low-paying jobs. I'll give you an example. If you look at the El Paso city government jobs, most of the starting wages for the El Paso city government are at $25,000 a year gross. $25,000 a year. Those wages, you would see them back in the 80s and the 90s. That's what I'm saying. Employers here are very hesitant to raise the wages because we have such an abundance of workers. If you say that wage is too low, you'll have 10 people say, no, I'll take that wage.
Sure.
So that I don't want to take too much time because I want to let other people interject their opinion. The only other thing I want to say is that I'm totally disagreement about these city reps and the mayor wanting extra money for their gasoline.
Oh, sure.
Us that we pay taxes our employers don't say, hey, here's an extra 50 for the high gas prices.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing about it, they should pay like us with their wage, their regular wage. They shouldn't get any perks or any extra money, especially how times are right now. We're in a 40-year high inflation. So to me, I'm totally against all these. They need to pay gas just like we do out of their regular wage. And with that being said, I want to thank you for your time, and
sure.
I let somebody else call in and say their opinion.
Yeah, sure thing. Well, appreciate the point on the call. I mean, these are serious issues and important ones. Yeah, the idea of, wage stagnation in our area, even if there is, low unemployment in our area, but other commenters referring to that as well. We'll get into that more here. So appreciate the point on the call. You have a good one there. Do appreciate it. So tell you what, we're right on the cusp of needing to take that break right now anyway. I mean, a lot of ideas brought up during that call, including the whole fight for 15 that has been brought up, and there's more response to that as well. So we'll talk about that and a whole lot more. Let's just take that next break right now. Again, the number to call if you want to get on the line is 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
In the North Valley, a multi-vehicle collision Gateway North at Diana has 2 main lanes blocked. I-10 eastbound is super slow this afternoon. Half-hour delays from Vinton to Red. Traffic is down to 1 lane. A vehicle fire has all lanes blocked on the I-10 westbound CD lanes, westbound at Sunland Park, and heavy traffic on Montana Avenue East between McRae and Desert Meadows. 10-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Inflation compensation is back.
Oh, yeah.
Demand your supply of $1,000.
$1,000? Oh!
Just listen for the keywords to text in to win $1,000. Happening now.
Listen for your chance to win $1,000 every hour, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the inflation compensation on News Radio 690 AM. Brought to you by Charlie Clark Nissan and Charlie Clark Infinity of El Paso. Orale!
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples has big savings on everything you need for school. And right now, save up to $250 on select computers. At Staples, school savings are always in session. In-store only offer ends July 29th. See an associate for details. School on, save on at Staples.
Paid for by Maxiderm Labs. Men, on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate your performance in the bedroom? If you're a 5, take it to 10. If you're a 10, why not take it up to 15? With Maxiderm Power Surge. Maxiderm's new Power Surge Red Pill makes you more potent than you or your partner ever imagined. It's like going from a sedan to a supercharged high-performance sports car, and it works fast. Just minutes. And now you can try it free. Just call 1-800-418-4698. If you thought being a 10 was great in the bedroom, just imagine what a 20 must be like. Experience off-the-scale virility with Maxiderm's new Red Pill Power Surge. You'll never want to go back to being just a 10. Call 1-800-418-4698 now to experience male enhancement supercharged. 1-800-418-4698 for your free trial and ask about our VIP club rewards. Hurry, this offer is limited. Call 1-800-418-4698. These statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Parents, are you tired of helping put your kids' shoes on? They're squirming, watching cartoons, anything but helping. Luckily, it's Skechers to the rescue. Introducing new hands-free Skechers slip-ins. Footwear you can just get your kids to step into and their shoes are on. You don't need to bend over. You don't need to sit on the floor and try to wrangle them on. And they're available in all types of Skechers styles with and without laces, and most are machine washable. Find Skechers slip-ins for kids or mom and dad at a Skechers store, Skechers.com, or wherever stylish shoes are sold.
There's a right way and a wrong way to fight off mosquitoes. Karate chopping the air in a public place in front of your kids and their friends, Mom, is the wrong way. Using Stem mosquito repellent is the right way. Stem effectively repels mosquitoes by harnessing active ingredients found in plants like lemongrass and peppermint, making it safe for use as directed around people and pets. STEM, rooted in nature, optimized by science, and embarrassment-free.
News Radio 690 KTSM El Paso.
Mazer Security Alarms, one of the new sponsors of Talk El Paso, locally based company offering no job is too big or too small for them to come and upgrade or install your systems, giving you peace of mind at home and the office, wherever important things may be found or people for you and yours. If you want to give them a call and get your estimate, 915-590-0033. That's 915-590-0033.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app. A whole lot of ways to interact with the show. And one thing that hasn't been talked about in the comments, and we weren't saying anything about it because we did not, frankly, want it to be a random radio show intruding on someone's time during this very difficult time here, but it has been noted that previous and long-time commenter, contributor in his own right, and often just interested in talking about the things in the Borderland, which we certainly appreciated. Flaco Jimenez, as he was known to us here on air, often mentioned that and dropping those likes and reacts, among other things. But Mark Flores, he unfortunately passed suddenly in this past week on the 14th, so right before the weekend. So a lot of people, that news is spreading. It's been posted in other ways, but we wanted to be respectful of the family, but we have been able to reach them now, and they have said that would be honored to be mentioned. We're very sad to hear that passing, so much condolences, and of course thoughts and prayers go with him, his family, and his loved ones in this very difficult time. There are some visitations and things coming up for those that know him. Be sure to check his pages and such here. But getting back to those phone lines right now, the show does of course continue. This must go on. That phone number, of course, to call 915-544-5876, 915-544-KTSM. Some of the comments on the current situation coming in about, particularly in response to the last caller, among other things, John Browston noting about, well, some of the issues about underemployment, saying a lot of workers in El Paso can't get 40 hours a week. Lots of workers only get 32 to 35 hours a week without benefits. I mean, there has been, I'm not as aware of it proliferating in our region, but I know it exists nationally, of the on-call worker. There have been some, let's just say, cases going on with it. Also, the whole gig economy revolution, remote working. There's a whole lot of changes going on with the labor market. That means that it's probably never going to be quite the same again. But the whole idea of, you have a job, we may or may not ask you to come in for hours, but you have to stay available to them, otherwise you can't hold the job. Kind of, I'm just going to call that messed up in a variety of different ways. But a lot of other conversations, including the idea, like Mulu Panado saying minimum wage is a stepping stone, not a hammock to rest upon, I guess is what you're saying there. But a lot of conversation about those situations. But let's get back to those phone lines right now. Again, 915-544-5876. 544-KTS. Okay, the full up at the moment, but keep that number handy. 915-544-5876. We do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us. Eric, you there with us? Did we lose Eric? Oop, sounds like Eric. Yep, Eric disconnected on the line there. Okay, so if you're on the line, just make sure you stay in good signal, and we'll try to get back to those calls if we can. So again, that number, 915-544-5876, 544-KTSM. We do have, in the meantime, we have Raul on the northeastern line with us here right now. Raul, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Andrew. Well, you know, El Paso keeps making the national news for record consecutive days of 100-degree heat.
Sure.
You know, and about the solutions for global climate change, there's a lot of good ideas, but they all take lots of money to do. It has to do about the money. It's making money while polluting the environment. So the three biggest and most important questions are, where are we going to get all the money that will be needed to stop polluting the atmosphere and to clean up the mess? Number two, who should pay for it? Number three, how should it be paid? But before you can answer those questions, and before one can develop solutions to a problem, one must first determine the cause or causes of the problem, identify the culprits, the perps. Now, there's an old saying, Andrew, probably came from plumbers that states that before you start mopping up the floor, you must first stop the leak. Now the energy plutocrats and their purchased politicians and prostitutes inflicted what in legal terms is called a tort, okay? And this tort was on humanity, the planet, in our atmosphere. Now, a tort is a civil wrong that causes a claimant to suffer loss or harm that results in a legal liability for the person who commits the torturous act. Now, Andrew, I'm not a lawyer, nor do I play one on TV. But in business school, we had to take courses in business law, consumer law, and real estate and property law, and also business ethics, which some joke is an oxymoron. Now, my businesses are highly regulated, and that's a good thing because we don't want just anyone managing people's money and ensuring their property and lives. Now, Trump could never be licensed in the investment industry. No one who has gone bankrupt or anyone who has paid a lawsuit settlement can have a license. Now, tort law aims to compensate the individuals who suffer harm as a result of the actions of others. So, as you know, Andrew, some businesses produce products that can have an impact on the environment and people, like the tobacco industry, one of the country's founding capitalist industries, which used slaves, went to war to keep them, and whose poisonous product was grandfathered into the law, allowing them to continue to sell their poisonous product, and all they have to do is warn the users on their package, okay? So these capitalists who were once slavers get to sell their legal poison that kills people and seriously harms people's health, and it's a gateway drug for young people. And where's the right and the Republicans' crusade against tobacco and alcohol? So the plutocrats give people the freedom to poison themselves by using tobacco or alcohol, and then they make the industry lots of money. It's capitalism and plutocracy at its best. Now, these businesses are regulated, and for good reasons, to protect the public and the environment. Now, how well they're regulated and who they are regulated by are big political issues and decisions. So when businesses produce or sell a product that harms the environment and or people, so that they can be sued for what is known as torts that include compensatory and punitive damages. And justice and law should dictate that those guilty of committing these torts should pay for the damages to the environment and people. Compensatory, however, damage the product has done to the environment. And we can get the money to do these things by taxing the energy companies' big owners and by eliminating the corporate income tax and raising personal income tax rates on the super rich. Otherwise, they just pass the tax increases on to consumers and increase prices.
I mean, okay, you brought up a lot there, including the idea of tort, and particularly mass torts, I think is what you'd be getting towards on the idea of this. Again, not a lawyer myself or focused on that. I thought about it in a previous life, but it hasn't worked out that way. But legal reasoning is not solely the provenance of those that have legal licenses, Juris Doctorates. Particularly you're talking about when it comes to the idea of there being suitable over this. See, the thing and the problem there is a lot of things you're talking about that, particularly with, let's take the example of tobacco, which you were given there, which, I mean, is, lung cancer, all those things. The U.S. actually doesn't go as far as some other countries, which have just a whole side of the packaging covered, not even just in the labels of smoking may or causes cancer. They show like autopsy isn't quite the actual right phrase for it, but they show like the damage to organs that's been done. But here's the problem. That is then a proximate harm. There is a cause and an effect that is directly provable. I mean, there was a point in time in which that was not, it was tested in courts and such to show if it was going to be, and then was able to move forward. But when it comes to this, there's another phrase that you should think about, and that is tragedy of the commons. It's often built into the idea of, okay, who's in charge of fisheries? Say, for example, in another way, it says, well, sometimes there has been regulatory agencies and there has been regulation that has come in order to protect them, to keep them from being overfished, because without it, the economic theory of, again, tragedy of the commons is that since no one's in charge of it and it's really of no benefit to someone to take less from it because someone else may then take more, it ends up being depleted. So without there being either agreements or, again, in this case, regulations put into place, it will end up being depleted. I mean, it used to be referred to as like the North Atlantic biomass of cod and other types of things. So money absolutely plays a part in here. Don't get me wrong. It's absolutely a part of it. But again, proximate cause from someone, say, okay, and there have been, of course, pollution cases. Take your Aaron Brockovich style things, right? Where sure, we did put this stuff in the ground and then the ground hurt people, but the direct negligence on the part of it is the provable thing, and what allows that to then, the Superfund sites moving towards that. And yeah, I know we're not quite sure totally locally, but well, it's a conversation that's been going on this whole last few weeks, let's be honest here. But so the proximate cause is the problem that you're going to encounter whenever you're trying to look at trying to enforce it this way. If you're talking about through the lens of mass torts, which you're talking about, of having a lot of people try to, say, sue an entity or something and try to say that you have caused this harm to us, the provability of it when you start talking about, the more removed you are from the source. Again, someone selling tobacco, that causing cancer, saying that, well, we just sold it, we didn't make you smoke it, that has proven unviable in the courts. Or something more along the lines of saying that, oh, well, we had faulty tires, but we didn't make you drive on them. Again, not viable. But of saying that, well, we produce products and that had emissions that come along with them, and us along with how many others? You start talking about having to target not just individual companies, but whole industries in order to focus and have that possibility. And again, what is, I would pretty well argue, and I would hesitate to say anyone else could say to the otherwise, not exactly settled law beyond all of the other considerations that go into this, of saying, all right, we're going to sue someone. The closest I think you could get, but even then, it's not really an apples-to-apples comparison, would be the situation involving Volkswagen. Some, better part of, if not over a decade ago at this point, remember the exact date on that one, but they were cheating on emissions tests, right? And in that case, there were regulations in place saying that, okay, you have to do certain things, and they set up their technology to essentially circumvent the testing to do more when they were being tested as opposed to when it wasn't doing regular emissions. So there was countries suing that, saying, hey, you have caused these direct emissions, these direct causes. So again, it's not exactly an apples to apples, because I think a lot of this is going to go on being saying, well, we weren't in violation of regulations at the time. So if you're wanting to talk about that as a solution to this or a way of addressing it, and that's why the whole, okay, let's come in and talk about who we're going to blame, or at least put punitive things on, it is not quite that simple. So we'll go ahead and take that next break right now. I need to take that break. And coming out of this, we got callers on the line. Lines still full up at the moment. So if you want to get on that line here, the number to call is 915-544-5876, 915-544 KTSM. Back after this break with more Talk El Paso here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Hello, everyone. This is Robert Olguin with your KFOX 14 News Update. We're learning more from police about what led to a mass shooting outside of a bar in East El Paso last week. Today, we obtained the arrest report for the two suspected shooters, who are both Fort Bliss soldiers. The shooting happened early Thursday morning in the parking lot of a bar called Ditsy Duck on Airway. A man and woman were killed. 4 others were injured in that shooting. Investigators say they have obtained surveillance video. According to the report, an assault occurred in the parking lot, and after the assault, the surveillance video shows that 20-year-old Andrew James Williams and 22-year-old Aaron John both pulled out handguns and started firing into a crowd in the parking lot. They drove away, but according to the report, they were stopped by military police as they tried to return to Fort Bliss. Both are being held on charges of capital murder. The El Paso interim city manager has ended the use of gas cards after some members of city council were accused of abusing the cards. Interim city manager Kerry Weston made the decision on Tuesday during a council meeting. El Paso Mayor Oscar Leeser says he fully supports the decision. This has been your KFOX 14 News Update. I'm Robert Olguin.
News Radio 690. Traffic all day.
Slowest part of the valley, definitely in the upper valley on the I-10 eastbound between Vinton and Artcraft. It is a 30-minute delay. Slow traffic I-10 westbound, not as bad, though. From Wrestler up to Red, it's a 5-minute delay. And a vehicle fire that had all lanes closed. All lanes are back open on the I-10 westbound CD lanes before Sunland Park, and that vehicle fire is out. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery. Weather warned for heat continues. Excessive heat warning through Thursday night, mostly sunny skies for our Wednesday, high around 110 degrees for tomorrow. We'll see partly cloudy skies for your Thursday, high around 109. Partly cloudy, breezy for your Friday, 10% chance of a storm, 106. And then not as hot on Saturday, partly cloudy, breezy, 20% chance of storms, high 101. From the KFOX 14 Severe Weather Center, I'm Chief Meteorologist Brad Montgomery.
This report is sponsored by Staples Stores. Staples Total Support Plans are your tech plans for the unplanned with 24/7 PC protection against bugs, cracks, and hacks. Plans start as low as $199.99, plus now get up to $250 off select computers. In-store only. Offer ends July 29th. See an associate for details. Protect your tech at Staples.
Hi, I'm Burt Ward, Robin from TV's Batman, inviting you to feed your dog natural, non-GMO, Gentle Giants dog and puppy food. Dogs eating Gentle Giants and following our special feeding and care program are living as long as 27 healthy, active years with a wonderful quality of life. Holy wow, 27 years! Think of all the extra years you could enjoy with your dog at Target, H-E-B, and stores near you. Try Gentle Giants cat and kitten food, too.
Attend the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, July 22nd and 23rd at the Forum Ballroom on 3800 Maddox in El Paso, Texas. See dealers selling the finest in modern guns, custom knives, ammo, scopes, rifles, shotguns, and more. Buy, sell, and trade at the El Paso Gun Show this weekend, July 22nd and 23rd at the Forum Ballroom, 3800 Maddox, El Paso, Texas. Get $2 off admission by going to azgunradio.com. That's azgunradio.com.
When your ride fires on all cylinders, so do you. That's why Napa is on a mission to keep you in motion. With nearly 6,000 Napa Auto Parts stores and over 17,000 Napa Auto Care centers, the Napa Network has everything you need to get up and go. This report is sponsored by Napa Auto Parts.
Weather and traffic info. You need it? We have it. Traffic and weather all day. Stay informed. News Radio 690 KTSM. El Paso's News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, call 915-544-KTSM or follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for joining us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I'm your host, Andrew J. Polk. Thank you for tuning in, however you may be doing so, be it on air, online, live streaming through the free and reliable iHeartRadio app, or joining us over on the various social media pages we're up on these days, facebook.com/Talk El Paso, the Talk El Paso channel over on YouTube, Twitter at Talk El Paso, or twitch.tv, Andrew J. Polk. And of course, those phone lines open and available now, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. And look, let's make a couple of things perfectly clear in case we haven't already, which I know we have, but takes some reiteration sometimes. If you disagree with me, that's fine. If you have a different point you want to make, that's fine. I mean, we try to keep it local during the week as much as possible. But if you just don't, you're unclear on the concept of I host the show, I really don't know what to do for you here. And we got callers on the line, so let's get back to those now. Again, 915-544-5876-544-KTSM. We do have Frankie and Missy on the line with us here right now. Frankie, thanks for joining us.
All right, listen. The topic of the day, from what I understand, is the housing situation in El Paso. And it's not only in El Paso, it's in Texas. It's all over the country, all over the world, for crying out loud. What we're talking about here, Andrew, and everybody else out there in the Southwest border region, is capitalism 101, supply, demand, inflation, cost of everything, to put these things together. Now, can you do it? Can you build, quote unquote, and I hate to say this, a Section 8 housing? Is that the way you want to go? The only way that's going to happen is if you got some money bag person willing to spend the money to put something like this up without having some special tax dispensation bennies out of it. There's no other way to happen. Not only that, there's got to be aspects of the people that are actually housed in there that they're going to trash the place, which normally happens when people who don't care, when they're renting a place, they trash the heck out of it. There's nobody in their right mind that's going to spend that kind of money and have their beautiful, brand new apartment building trashed out. That's the way it is, right out of the box. There's a lot of other things involved in that. I'm just hitting it off on the surface. Now, what do you think of that?
I mean, yeah, Section 8 housing, federal programs that basically try to have affordable housing. I mean, you can look at it in similar types of programs as like rent control, though I'm not aware of that happening in our area. The closest I think you could get would be like, what is it now? Home El Paso, the housing authority for the city of El Paso. That's now known as Home. They're now housed in the Blue Flame building, in which they've actually turned into some affordable, such as low rent and on. You have to apply for them, have certain qualifications, etc. type of program. So making sure that you have availability, because it's starting to become a question of, okay, if you're going to want people, because I mean, sure, I agree somewhat also with the logic of that. I mean, certain jobs are, stepping stones to move up from, but also there's a factor of, do you think that people who do certain jobs, it's like the McDonald's tellers, let's just put it that way, because those often come up, or just fast food in general, not to pick on McDonald's or anything, that the idea is that they have to be subsidized somehow else, like it's either to be done by those that are young or those that are retired or something like that, that there is therefore some other subsidy, which is why it comes down to that a lot of these ending up being low wage type jobs end up having some other either personal or federal subsidy. I mean, you think about it, the amount of people that are then on some kind of rental assistance, food stamps, WIC, other types of programs that are within those categories is significant. So saying that, well, yeah, we don't want the cost to go up that more, it doesn't necessarily bear out in my mind, because, well, if you're going to then have to pay for it elsewhere, it's still other costs. It's just not showing up in the cost of your burger.
Well, no, I get that. And here's where the big rub comes, because you're talking, to make this thing work, you're talking a huge advent or input relative to socialism, to kind of help pad the account, to make it work for the people that normally couldn't afford it otherwise. And in our current political climate, that ain't going to happen. I mean, it can work. I mean, but there has to be a solid thought process of everybody across the board to make it work. Now, I don't know how you do that. I mean, I have to put some more thought process into that thing, but there's no other way around it. I mean, if you can't afford the apartment in a capitalistic society that we're in, you're out of luck. You live at home with mom and dad, or you're living in a tent. Simple as that.
I mean, yeah, we're seeing how well that works out for places like, say, California, in which case it's not even just like the minimum wage folks. In places like San Francisco, you can making six figures and not be able to afford housing, because that's how out of whack things can get.
Well, you're right. And if you look at the current situation, San Francisco is a basket case for all the reasons you want to say. But I'm going to tell you, right now, the way the circumstances swing, there is going to be apartments going for nothing, because everybody is leaving, not so much because they're expensive, but this infusion of all the homeless because of all the other socialistic aspects. And I'm not knocking socialistic aspects, but that is going to just knock the heck out of the cost of housing in San Francisco. Now, having said that, I just want to say, I heard you earlier, Flaco Jimenez has passed. And I feel so bad, especially when somebody like that, is a part of our little family on KTSM. And I just hope, that thing in the Bible, what do they call it? Yea, through I walk through the valley of death, I'll be comforted by your staff and stuff. And I hope, he's being comforted by that. That's all I want to say.
Oh, well, fair enough. Well, thank you for that note there. And again, condolences to his family and his loved ones here. We have been in contact with him, which is why we ended up saying it here on the show, as people were already talking about in the comments here. Definitely not seeking to intrude on their privacy during this difficult time here, but if they so choose, we'll share any other arrangements that have been going on since he was, a part of this radio family, so to speak. So thank you for the point in the call. Do appreciate it.
Okay, take care, Andrew.
All right, and with that, I think we can squeeze on at least one more call or so before we get towards the end of this hour. Right now, we do have Eric on the east side here with us right now. Eric, thanks for joining us.
Hello there. Yeah, that first caller, in regards to that first caller, Joe Biden, Democrats, they only have 50 votes in the Senate. That's the slimmest majority possible. They're conservative Democrats like Sinema and Manchin, who prevent things like a $15 minimum wage from being passed. So you shouldn't be too harsh on Biden for not having that done. But
okay.
But in regards to yesterday, that Sound of Freedom movie, if you do your research, it's completely made up. Like, and even the story the guy behind it tells is completely made up. And there's a show on the station called Red Pilled America, right?
Yes. Well, it is
Yeah,
part of the podcast network. Sure.
Okay, yeah, they had 2 episodes on it. You know, I know your followers would trust an information source like that, but they go into, you know, the legal documents detailing the case that the movie is about. Like, the kid involved was an American citizen. There was no hunt for his sister, and the kid wasn't being part of a sex slavery ring. Like these, it's and you know, these people are tied to QAnon, and yeah, it's just there's fraud all around. And that Tim Ballard guy, he's also the CEO of Glenn Beck's Nazarene Fund, which I had heard about like a while back when the Afghanistan evacuation was happening. It sounded like a fraudulent company or a charity. You know, they're fundraising money to get Christians out of Afghanistan. You know, like the government isn't doing that, or the State Department wasn't doing that at the time. And, you know, there have been multiple investigations or investigative reports on that guy's organization, the Underground Railroad one, that shows that the Nazarene Fund and that is just part of some nonprofit, you know, fraud campaign that funnels money into Ballard's for-profit companies. It really is crazy. You know, pretty insane when you actually do your research into it. You know, Vice has a couple of good stories on it. You know, I would recommend you Google Vice and then that organization. But you know, during yesterday's call, you know, I was looking in the comments, and in general, you have about like 8 commenters who post on your Facebook page every day, and you know, about more or less. And you know, 3 of them promoted some pretty extremist nonsense on there. Like one of them said Pizzagate is real. Like Pizzagate is a belief that high-level Democrats were using a pizza place to traffic children. And that eventually led to a right-wing terrorist attacking that pizza place. And, you know, that same daily commenter usually promotes a great replacement there as well. And, you know, another one proudly said that they love QAnon and they weren't being sarcastic. And then another one said they communicated they think Madonna and Cher drink the blood of children to look young, you know, referencing adrenochrome. And, you know, yesterday Marco called in associating the acknowledgement of trans people existing and respecting the medical community's views on trans people is linked or associated to child trafficking. Like I've mentioned this in the past, like a sizable percentage of your followers are fringe right-wing extremists. And, you know, that has to be acknowledged. And
well, it sounds like A, you're acknowledging, and B, also, I think you might be misunderstanding the point of this program, the way we do it. I mean, you put things out online, people are going to comment on it. And if you're taking people commenting on there as endorsement of what they're saying, you would be mistaken if that was indeed your conclusion. Because, I mean, people say things, and if you also clocked yesterday, disagreed with the adrenochrome as there's not enough evidence for it out there that proves it's true. Anything along those lines is something that is, at the very least, foot in the grave of conspiracy theory town, because if it can't be proved with evidence, shown conclusively, these kind of things, like when you start talking about scientific studies, etc., if the lack of evidence starts becoming evidence for it, you've lost me entirely with that here. So if you're trying to link anything and to call them, to say that I have followers, like I have disciples or something like that, is laughable at its face here, because if you also notice that a lot of those people are often yelling at me. I mean, we inhabit a space where we're trying to foster discussion, and that doesn't tend to happen if you're saying, yeah, you're not allowed to talk anymore. So if you're just wanting to like bash other people, I mean, sure, there are bad ideas out there. Let's be perfectly honest with it, including the idea of what I was saying to you anyway from yesterday, was that the idea of, okay, yeah, there may be good or bad things, like even with the idea of by trying to finance a market to try and, finance the stoppage of a market, you can actually create a further market to it. Like, I didn't do a good job with the example of poachers yesterday, but there was the example, I want to say it was from like the late 1800s, early 1900s, of there was a push to get rid of Starfish is one example, though that's more of a mismanagement. There was the example of snakes. This has happened a lot of times in places around the world where trying to eradicate it, they say, okay, we want to, bring us bounties on snakes, and we'll give you money, therefore trying to encourage people to end up getting rid of it. But what that ends up doing instead is creating a market for people to breed snakes, to make more snakes, because the incentive is then not on the removal of snakes, it's on of the bringing them of snakes. So if they removed all of the snakes, then they would have no more money to be gotten there. So there can be, if you're trying to find the effect that would work best for the outcome that you are seeking, trying to do too many degrees of separation from it can create, perverse incentives. Let's put it that way. So if you're wanting to say that, again, I have followers of people who talk about this. Look, the fact of the matter is that the vast majority of the audience of this program, it does not interact. They're not required to by any means. We've got plenty of people in cars or not paying attention online, or at least not commenting on it. So if you truly feel that we're fostering anything besides people wanting to talk about local things, that's the only thing that we avow. And if you're taking us as any endorsement of opinions, or more specifically, not saying what you would say to them, that's entirely your prerogative. But as we have talked about many previous times, we have some very different philosophies when it comes to handling issues, because let's just say taking the curb stomping opposition position is not one that we do on this program. So I appreciate the point in the call for what it's worth here, even though that just kind of felt like a burn book there for a minute. Tell you what, I think we got time for one more quick call on the line here. Again, if you call in the middle of a segment, you might end up being popped up live. So we do have a caller that called in the middle of it. You're live with Talk El Paso. Who's this?
This has been on the east side. Just want to say one thing.
Sure.
Let's thank God for Palo Verde, the nuclear plant in Arizona, and all the fossil fuels which make living in El Paso possible. Thank God for AC.
Fair enough there. Well, appreciate the point in the call. You have a good one there.
Let's go, Brandon. Thank you.
All right, with that, we have to take that last break right now. Coming out of this break, tell you what we got coming up for you on the program. So stay tuned. More Talk El Paso after this break here on News Radio 690 KTSM. Stay tuned.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
Heads up for a crash on the I-10 eastbound near Geronimo exit. It's involving a charter bus and a vehicle. Both vehicles are off to the left. Traffic is slowing there. I-10 eastbound, super slow all day long from Vinton to Artcraft, and even down to Red. It's only traffic's down to one lane. It's a 20-minute delay. And heavy traffic on Montana Avenue eastbound McRae to Desert Meadows. 13-minute delays there. Carrie Edwards, El Paso traffic.
This report is sponsored by Lowe's. Lowe's is always bringing pros more ways to save. Right now, save $50 when you buy the Tank 6-gallon pancake air compressor from Metabo HPT. Lowe's knows savings. Lowe's knows pros. Valid 7/6 through 7/26 while supplies last.
Attention, your money is now controlled by the U.S. government.
Picture a world where your every purchase is monitored, tracked, and controlled by those in power to suppress the freedoms of those they see fit. Hi, my name is Jason Hansen. I'm a former CIA officer and New York Times bestselling author. And right now, I become very focused on the impending rollout of the central bank digital currency. This is not a work of fiction. It's a terrifying reality looming on the horizon. But there is a bit of good news. I've partnered with Advantage Gold to offer you a solution. They are specialists in converting your traditional assets, like those inside an IRA or 401k, into tangible assets such as physical gold and silver. Don't allow your money to be controlled. Claim your free gold protection kit from Advantage Gold. Call 800-900-8000, 800-900-8000. That's 800-900-8000.
Advantage Gold is not an investment advisor or a tax advisor.
Call 800-900-8000.
If you're hiring, it can feel like you're trying to find a needle in a haystack. You can hope the right person comes along, or you can just use ZipRecruiter. And now you can try it for free at ZipRecruiter.com/free. In fact, ZipRecruiter has helped a lot of business owners find their needle in a haystack, like Marco, president of operations at Telly Tires and Auto Centers. Because Telly Tires has grown a lot in the last few years, Marco needed to hire everyone from a receptionist to a store manager to a head mechanic.
ZipRecruiter helps me find all the right people, even the most difficult jobs to fill.
ZipRecruiter helps me keep my business running.
Take it from Marco and millions of other businesses who've used ZipRecruiter. ZipRecruiter can help you find the needle in the haystack.
See why 4 out of 5 employers who post a job on ZipRecruiter get a quality candidate within the first day. And right now, you can try ZipRecruiter for free. That's right, free. At ZipRecruiter.com/free. That's ZipRecruiter.com/FREE. ZipRecruiter.com/free. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
Did you know that only 2 in 10 El Paso County students graduate with a bachelor's degree? By supporting Border Youth Athletic Association's mission of educational attainment, you will create a long-lasting impact in our students' lives. Your monthly donation enables 4th through 12th grade students access to after-school programs, providing a safe and healthy environment. BYAA engages and empowers El Paso's future through mentorship and leadership development. We believe every player who gets an education wins. Do you? Go to borderyouth.org and show your support for our youth today.
News Radio 690 KTSM.
Live from the KTSM AM 690 studios, it's Talk El Paso with Andrew J. Polk. To be a part of the show, follow on Facebook at facebook.com/Talk El Paso. Now here's your host, Andrew J. Polk.
Thank you all so very much for having joined us here for Talk El Paso, airing live on News Radio 690 KTSM. I've been your host, Andrew J. Polk, and of course, Talk El Paso, brought to you in part by Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Again, if you want to find out them and what they got, 950 Crockett Street, El Paso, across I-10 from, for the moment, Sunland Park Mall. Soon to be something else, according to the news stories. But again, 950 Crockett Street, Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat, and of course, Ruli's International Kitchen, not too far down the street from us here at the station. Find them online at rulisik.com. That's RULISIK.com. Give them a call. Make your reservation for brunches, special occasions, or just the everyday. 915-313-4806. Or again, find them 4176 North Mesa. And proud sponsors of Talk El Paso with their own unique local and internationally infused flavors. So some of the stuff we're working for you on the show. Speaking of employments, there are, of course, a lot of issues, and veterans are often brought up, though not necessarily always focused on, except for, of course, those organizations that have it right in the title. So I had a conversation with DAV, Disabled American Veterans, about their focuses and pushes towards the focus on, well, among other things, veterans employments. I think day or week is coming up here. So there is definitely a lot of conversation to be had around that and what the efforts they are doing and are also available to veterans and employers who are wanting to employ veterans in our community. So another conversation coming up for you there. In the meantime, we've got a lot more that we'll be talking about, but we'll have to leave it there for today because we are super out of time here for this program. So I want to thank everyone that did tune in, call in, comment, participate in the show in every way. If you want to talk about particularly the local things, because Friday is always coming, but in the meantime, we've got a lot to get through. So until then, until next time, I want you all to stay safe out there, look twice for motorcycles when out on the road, and have a great evening, y'all. We'll see you tomorrow.
Traffic all day. News Radio 690.
I-10 eastbound is the slowest spot in the valley today from Vinton to Artcraft. Thanks to that road construction and one lane of travel, 20-minute delays. Watch for an accident southbound Dyer at Hondo Pass. That earlier crash on the I-10 eastbound at Geronimo involving a charter bus and a vehicle is clear. All lanes are back open. Heavy traffic on Montana eastbound, McRae out to Desert Meadows. 11-minute delays. Kerry Edwards, El Paso traffic.
Hey, El Paso and surrounding areas. This is Ivan Ochoa, General Manager of Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. Thank you for making us #1 in new car sales again. We make buying a new or certified pre-owned vehicle fast, fun, and easy.
Our goal this month is to break our all-time sales record, so Sunland Park, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat will do whatever it takes to make a deal. Get 10% off MSRP on 2023 Ram 1500 Lone Star trucks, $4,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Gladiator trucks, and super low 1.9% APR for 72 months. $2,000 off MSRP on 2023 Jeep Wrangler, plus 2023 Jeep Grand Cherokee Laredo. $3,500 off MSRP and 2.9% for 72 months. Worry about your trade or credit? Don't sweat it. Our aggressive lenders will push to approve your credit, even if your credit is less than perfect or if you owe more than the trade is worth. Get huge savings and more for your trade during the Make This a Summer sales event at Sunland Park Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, Ram, Fiat. At I-10 at Sunland Park Drive or online at sunlandparkdodge.com. Estamos en tu esquina El Paso Strong. Includes factory rebate and dealer discount plus CTNL. 1.9% APR is $1,471 and 2.9% is $1,515 per thousand finance. On select vehicles with approved credit. Offers not combined.
Portions of the following program were pre-recorded.
Okay, forest animals, today is a new day. Kids are coming to the forest, and it's up to us to make their visit a good one. Sparrow.
Yes?
Have you practiced the most popular bird songs for the year?
Of course.
Catchy. I like it. Okay, River.
Dude,
How's the temperature?
It's a refreshing 52 degrees, man. Perfect for a little riverside shoeless relaxation.
Ah, good. Owl, you here? Of course. Who's asking? I